This is why the 25th Amendment was written. It was ratified in 1967, authorizing the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to remove the president from power when and if that president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The 25th Amendment was written for the day when the Democratic leader of the United States Senate could credibly say, quote, "The president is ranting like an unhinged madman." As he said yesterday, it was impossible to imagine back when they wrote the 25th Amendment. It was impossible for them to imagine a day with the President of the United States ranting like an unhinged madman. Speaking of alarming developments, let's talk about this eye-opening letter from Republican Representative Nancy Mace. She wrote on April 8, 2026, mentioning that Pam Bondi did a terrible job with the Epstein files and actually undermined President Trump. That's right. A Republican saying that a Trump-appointed Attorney General messed up in a formal letter. It's wild to see a sitting Republican House member putting it out there like that. The 25th Amendment was written for the day when a former Republican member of Congress who voted for that Republican president 3 times would declare to the world he has gone insane. The 25th Amendment was written for yesterday at 8:03 a.m. That's what Donald Trump delivered his Easter greeting to the world that included a promise to commit war crimes on Tuesday night. The 25th Amendment was written for this. Most of you have seen this profane and perverse social media post. I am not going to read it as is customary for such exhibits introduced on TV news programs because it is pure war-mongering, filthy madness. This isn't about a fictional rant from Trump. It's an actual documented incident from April 8, 2026, along with that Republican letter. So here's the scoop on a situation that's really raised some eyebrows lately. The House Oversight Committee is putting pressure on Bondi with a subpoena, asking her to explain how she managed Epstein's releases. It seems she may have been more focused on protecting co-conspirators instead of actually helping the victims. This subpoena, which was all enforced on the 8th of April 2026, has been reported by both BBC and CBS. On that same day, Mace wrote a letter that clearly called out Bondi for her poor handling of the Epstein files and even said it made Trump look bad. Now, it gets a little murky because the DOJ is saying that Bondi won't show up since she's not the Attorney General anymore. However, the committee insists that she's still personally bound by the subpoena, which is documented right there on the 8th of April, 2026. Let's not forget the dramatic hearing from February 11th, 2026, where Bondi had quite the meltdown, yelling at lawmakers and sulking while Trump was busy calling it all fantastic versus radical left. This little performance got covered by the Daily Beast in the BBC as well. Interestingly, Trump took to Truth Social to defend Bondi, but it sounded a bit frantic as it became clear the GOP was starting to turn against them both. Plus, we can't ignore the bipartisan demands from Mace, a Republican, and Garcia, a Democrat, who are looking for compliance or contempt from her. Every piece of this story has some credible backing from either journalistic sources or official records from the latest reporting. When you pull it all together, the level of alarm surrounding this whole scenario is pretty significant. So let's talk about this noteworthy situation involving Nancy Mace and Pam Bondi. Mace, a current Republican House member, really stepped into the spotlight with her letter dated April 8, 2026. In this letter, she didn't hold back, clearly stating that Bondi's handling of the Epstein files was terrible and that it undermined Donald Trump. This honest assessment is quite alarming because it shows a significant departure from typical Republican loyalty, especially in such a formal way. When a sitting Republican politician points fingers like that, especially in an official congressional letter, it sends a strong message. It's not the usual banter you'd find on social media. This is serious. The language Mace used makes it an important signal in the ongoing debate about accountability surrounding Epstein. By labeling the handling as terribly done and undermined, she's shedding light on what many might consider a pretty fundamental issue within the party. This suggests more than just tension. It indicates a substantial shift away from supporting Trump in such a sensitive context. Mace's formal stance on this matter is crucial because it becomes part of the official narrative about how the Republican Party is addressing the Epstein situation. It really underscores a moment of accountability that they can't easily walk back, which just adds to the complexity of ongoing discussions in Congress. It's worth paying attention to how this unfolds, especially given the legal implications tied to other ongoing disputes like those involving the Department of Justice. It's quite something how the situation with the post office and subpoenas is unfolding. The Department of Justice has announced that Bondi is no longer serving as Attorney General, so she won't be appearing. But the committee insists that the subpoena applies to her personally, not just in her official role. This is a really concerning point because it raises the issue of personal versus official accountability, which is crucial here. When you think about it, the distinction between personal bindings and official capacity really highlights the urgency of accountability regarding the post office. Even though there's been a departure from official positions, personal bindings still seem to carry weight. That's a significant signal about the ongoing responsibility that can't be washed away just because someone has left their official post. It's basically saying even if you step down, you still have accountability to face. Also in the mix is the fact that during the hearing on February 11th, 2026, which Trump described as fantastic, there was quite a scene. It's pretty comical to see him reacting that way while Bondi was visibly frustrated, like sulking and yelling at lawmakers. The Daily Beast and the BBC have both covered this, highlighting the stark contrast between Trump's enthusiastic remarks and Bondi's behavior during the congressional testimony. Overall, it's definitely revealing when it comes to institutional accountability. It's honestly hard to believe what's been happening lately. You've got this situation where a former attorney general is actually being personally subpoenaed, and this really raises the stakes on accountability. The way Bondi has been acting, sulking and yelling at lawmakers, while Trump calls it all fantastic, is definitely setting a concerning tone. It really nails down the idea of presidential endorsement of congressional disrespect, which is alarming in itself. The Daily Beast and BBC have documented this, making it clear that we're seeing a genuine endorsement of congressional contempt. This isn't just a minor issue, it's a big deal when the behavior of top officials signals a lack of respect for the institution itself. Now let's dive a bit deeper because there are a few key aspects of this story that really need to be unpacked. First up, we have the whole aspect of what it means to have this fired AG personally subpoenaed. That's a huge deal and could really shape how Bondi's testimony unfolds, especially considering the formal accountability framework we're looking at. Then there's the second angle involving the Department of Justice spilling details on congressional accountability. Understanding what the Bondi deposition means in this context is pretty crucial as well. Let's break this down and take a closer look at what's happening with the Epstein files and the whole accountability situation. When we think about what's going on, especially with both sides of the political aisle, Republicans and Democrats, it's clear there's some serious tension and compliance issues. Recently, there's been a significant focus on a fired attorney general who now faces a personal subpoena just weeks after losing her job. This whole scenario really amps up the urgency around congressional oversight, particularly since the subpoena is incredibly binding. Once you're no longer in an official position, there's no escape. Being both fired and immediately subpoenaed makes it abundantly clear that accountability is no longer an option. It's a necessity. This situation sends a powerful message. It's groundbreaking, really showing how the wheels of accountability are starting to turn despite any previous protections that may have existed. The deadline for her testimony is not just another date on the calendar. It represents a key moment for contemporary accountability. It's definitely a signal that things are shifting and the stakes are higher than ever. So there's this serious situation brewing with lawmakers from both sides of the aisle that really raises eyebrows. I mean, the way they're talking about contempt charges and compliance is pretty surprising. We've got Nancy Mace, a Republican, and Eric Garcia, a Democrat, both pushing for accountability. This is where it gets interesting. Their joint demand for compliance or the threat of contempt really shows how they're stepping outside of typical partisan boundaries, making this a significant moment for nonpartisan accountability. The fact that they're coming together on this issue sends a strong message. It implies that both sides are feeling the heat about accountability in our institutions, which is often not the case. This is officially documented, so it's not just talk, it's real. Now on to the Department of Justice and the implications of the whole Epstein saga. There's a lot to unpack here. The Bondi deposition is particularly crucial. It's not just about what she said, but what it means for future accountability regarding the Epstein files. This thing highlights how we've got to address potential mismanagement that once protected co-conspirators, while victims were left exposed. The more we dig into this, the clearer it becomes just how intricate and urgent these accountability issues are. So, it turns out there's a pretty alarming situation going on with the Department of Justice. Everyone's buzzing about how they've managed the Epstein files. The whole thing centers around co-conspirator protection and the urgent need for accountability. It's really about uncovering the truth behind their handling of these cases, and what keeps coming to the forefront is the character of those who are protecting these co-conspirators. This brings us to a significant concern everyone's talking about, especially when we think about the implications for accountability within the Justice Department. The assessment around these co-conspirators really shines a light on the bigger picture, the urgency for transparency regarding what's been hidden. There's much at stake, and the exposure of a potential cover-up is sending alarms off everywhere. I mean, when you take a look at the documents from April 8th, 2026, it's clear we have to dive into this further. This isn't just a random topic. It's linked to the GOP's shifting loyalties, particularly in the wake of the Bondi Congress Epstein fiasco. It's fascinating to see how the party is fracturing as some members start turning against Trump. This shift is significant and requires serious attention given the context of the upcoming midterms in 2026. It's not just about individual controversies like the reactions from Bacon and Graham regarding the Iran ceasefire and how that plays into loyalty issues. You can really see a fundamental fracture happening within the Republican Party. Mace, for instance, has been vocal about Bondi undermining Trump, which really underscores where the chaos lies in terms of accountability. Is Trump really taking the blame for the mishandling of Epstein-related matters? It's a wild ride of political maneuvering, and the stakes couldn't be higher. It's pretty intense how Trump's situation is unfolding in the political landscape right now. Honestly, the way things are going signals some serious cracks in GOP loyalty. The fact that some Republicans are stepping back from supporting him really shows how they're weighing their survival over sticking together, especially when you think about the upcoming midterms in 2026. That's a big deal, and it rings alarm bells about loyalty within the party. In a recent letter, Mace pointed out Trump's failures, which is a significant highlight of the growing divide within the party. This isn't just casual banter, this is documented proof of a break in the Republican ranks. And let's not overlook Trump's outburst on Truth Social, where he defended Bondi's past comments, even while it seems the GOP is shifting away from them. It feels like a sign of panic on his part, and honestly, that's a big deal in the realm of political accountability. When a sitting president is out there defending a former attorney general's outbursts is something great, while that same Republican is publicly saying she's undermining him, it really underscores a stark contradiction. It's like watching a poorly scripted drama unfold, especially when this all plays out on platforms like Truth Social. Such public contradictions are concerning and really speak to the heart of accountability in his presidency. This situation really highlights a major vulnerability for the presidency, and it's creating a lot of urgency around accountability. On Truth Social, there's a defense being put forward that's clearly contradicted by Republican statements, which only adds to the confusion. It's alarming to see such a public contradiction, especially since it signals panic regarding accountability. The fact that this contradiction is out in the open, not just a private concern, makes it even more significant in the context of what's been documented in the institutional record.